the Orthodontic Products podcast. I'm your host, Allison Warner. Today we have with us Tony Peniche from the orthodontic consulting firm Peniche and Associates. Tony is the director of innovation there and works with orthodontic practices to build marketing programs to build the practice's brand and helps them develop innovative ways to build their success. We're going to talk about the biggest marketing budget wasters and how you can better spend your resources. Tony, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So to get started, can you talk a little bit about how you got into the field of orthodontic consulting and marketing?
Yeah. So my mother is Leanne Peniche, the founder. And, so I grew up in this environment. And, I will admit I didn't really want to join the family business. I didn't really actually understand what it was that she was doing.
Yeah.
I knew it was consulting, but didn't understand the big picture. So after high school, I started building and selling companies in fashion, food and beverage, did a lot of fashion photography as well, invented a few things. And then about 5 years ago now, which is crazy that much time has passed, I was asked to come in and help with a couple of the clients for about 6 months. And then I was going to go off and build another company. And then honestly, after about 8 weeks, I really fell in love with it. I realized that actually this fits my personality type really perfectly because I like to build and sell and move on to the next thing. And basically every week I'm in a different client's office around the country. And so every week it's new and fresh to me and very creatively stimulating.
Yeah.
5 years later, I'm still here. I am still building companies outside of Peniche and Associates. I can't stop myself, but I'm really enjoying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about what Peniche and Associates will do for our practice when they're hired on as a consultant?
Yeah. Peniche and Associates, we help with everything. Whether you're fresh out of college and you're looking to be an associate, or you're looking to buy a practice, and then everything in between and all the way to transitioning out, whether it's rebranding or just finding a buyer, and everything in between. So we help you. Our big claim to fame is our case acceptance process. The national average of case acceptance is roughly 53%, and our clients are averaging around 85%. Again, no fluff numbers; those are true case acceptance. We also, provide scripting, clinical systems, office management systems, the proper systems to put in place to hire and fire. How do you qualify the right potential employees that you're looking to hire? And sometimes we actually do that for you.
Okay.
And then my specialty is we have 17 consultants and most of them are pretty versatile. But then we have a handful of specialists as well. So we have a financial specialist, a computer systems and patient management program specialist. I'm personally a marketing and branding specialist. So if you're looking to increase new patient exams or increase community awareness, that's what I'm here for.
Okay. So then you're the perfect person to talk about marketing and how people are potentially wasting their money. So what are the biggest marketing budget wasters in your experience? This is our topic.
Yeah, it's pretty broad. There's a lot of different areas of marketing and branding. And so I think one of the biggest things, if you don't have proper checks and balances to figure out what your return on investment is, that's the biggest one. So anytime you put something in, you need to decide, you need to figure out is this a marketing program or a branding element? And if it's a branding element, it's going to be really difficult to track the return on investment there.
Okay.
But if it's a marketing program, then there should be some sort of call to action and some way to track the return on investment. One of the biggest things that I see as far as wasting money goes is simply not having a dedicated marketing credit card. So whoever's in charge of all the marketing needs to have their own dedicated credit card. Your SEO, your Google ads, all of the products that you're buying for deliveries to the dental offices, anything related to marketing needs to be done on that specific credit card. Because when I come into the offices and I start auditing the expenses for marketing, we find all kinds of weird stuff thrown in there, like coffee for the staff break room, or paper
Okay.
towels or silly things like that, that,
Yeah.
whoever's managing the QuickBooks, they're like, I don't know where to put this item. And so they just kind of chuck it into marketing,
Oh, okay.
which is unfair to the marketing coordinator who's trying to
Mhm.
manage that budget, obviously.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, so definitely get a dedicated credit card. That would help for sure.
Mhm.
One of the probably biggest, most obvious money wasters that I see is from your branded swag and products. So
Mhm.
sunglasses, hats, water bottles, things like that. Um, I'm sure this doesn't make me a lot of friends when I say this, but I don't recommend ordering out of catalogs. If there's a dental product catalog or ortho catalog where
Mhm.
they're like, buy your staff shirts and buy your shoes and buy sunglasses and buy all this stuff through this
Mhm.
catalog, there's like 5 or 6 middlemen in there, and it's marked way, way up. And usually,
Okay.
the suppliers of that catalog are actually buying it directly from the factories in China or overseas somewhere,
Mhm.
and you can find them directly. So you can use
Okay. Mhm.
Alibaba.com. It's not really meant for the general public. It's meant for
Mhm.
businesses. So
Mhm.
there's always minimums. Usually the minimums are, you might be able to find a minimum order of like 50 units, but
Okay.
oftentimes it's going to be a couple hundred, and
Yeah.
it's going to save you a ton of money. So something that normally retails for $38 roughly, you're probably going to get it for $2 or $3, and it'll have
Mm.
your logo on it.
Okay.
Um, I'm sure most of the people watching somewhere in their office right now, there's somebody in that office, if not multiple people in that office, have those Stanley
Yes.
water bottles
Uh-huh.
or hydro flasks. They're so
Mhm.
popular right now, right?
Yeah.
And those cost between $38 and $55.
Okay.
You can get limited edition ones for $200. You got to remember, Stanley doesn't manufacture those things. Stanley is just putting their logo on someone else's product that they
Ah.
got from Alibaba, and you
Okay.
can actually go directly to Alibaba and order those for I think $3.50, and it'll have your logo
Okay.
on it. And so
Okay.
that's a great, because they're so popular right now, that's a great,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
giveaway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, can you go back to, you talked about how with marketing you can have those checks and balances, um, and really, know if you're getting your money's worth with something. But with branding, it's harder to do that. Can you still talk about, like, I think there's some people who still don't realize how important branding is. So can you talk a little bit, while why, even though that you can't always see your return on investment right away or in hard numbers, there is still a benefit to it in the long term.
Yeah, with branding, it's more about being top of mind. So it's kind of
Hmm.
like when you drive down the street and you see a billboard for McDonald's,
Hmm.
they're not actually oftentimes expecting you to pull off the road and buy something right then and there. It's just to
Hmm.
keep it fresh on your mind. And so by having your logo on your products, or sponsoring some event. It's just to remain relevant so people
Hmm.
remember that you exist. And then that way, when it does come time to pursue treatment, you're the first one that they think of.
Okay. So, we talked a little bit there about where practices are wasting their resources. What are better ways, in your opinion, to spend the marketing budget?
Um, Try to do as many things as you can yourself. I know that's
Mm.
hard. I know everyone's busy.
Yeah.
But if you can dedicate a couple of hours and try to do it efficiently, which is really what I teach, we teach a master marketing academy, and I try to
Mhm.
teach everyone to do everything themselves, but do it in a streamlined, efficient way.
Okay.
So it doesn't take up too much of your time.
So what would be some of
But
those things that they're doing themselves then?
so some offices, like in the waiting area, they'll have like a TV monitor,
Hmm.
and they'll be paying some company, I don't know who, but they'll be paying some company a bunch of money to load the slideshow on there,
Right.
and have those marketing bits,
Hmm.
rotating through.
Hmm.
And that's completely unnecessary. You can go to
Hmm.
Canva and create slides yourself for
Yeah.
free.
Hmm.
It's really easy.
It
And then you
is.
save it as a PNG or a JPEG, save it
Hmm.
on a thumb drive, and you stick the thumb drive in the back of the TV. And I think a lot of people don't realize that pretty much all smart TVs, if it's if the TV is, let's say 8 years or newer, they
Yeah.
all have USB ports on the back of
Yep.
it, and you can just stick the USB port in there, hit play, slideshow, hit repeat, and then it's done.
Hmm.
And you don't need to be
Hmm.
paying anybody for that.
Mm. Okay. Um, I know in talking to you earlier, we talked about blending millennial and legacy marketing strategies. So I'm curious, I wanted to see if you could talk to our audience about this and what do you mean by millennial versus legacy marketing strategies?
Yeah. So millennial marketing is kind of all the newer stuff that everyone's excited about, right?
Hmm.
It really, oftentimes it involves technology or social media, and it's not very personal. It's more, oftentimes you're trying to use systems that are automated, um, and more efficient, but you kind of lose that human connection there. So, I mean, it's good and it works. There's a lot of systems within millennial marketing that works, um, but you can't forget the human element. And so the legacy marketing programs are things that were developed in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s that are more personal and more hands-on and high touch,
Hmm.
high feel. And those things are not going anywhere. Those will last forever. Um, so things like, creating baskets or gifts and delivering those to the dental offices,
Hmm.
or some sort of interpersonal engagement with your current patients and trying to motivate them to increase, to refer you their friends or family
Yeah.
members as well. Those interpersonal relationships, we call those legacy.
Okay.
And like I said, those are things that aren't going anywhere.
Okay. And so really it's about blending the two to work in tandem then.
Yeah, because so many, I think everyone's obsessed with the new. And don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I am all about the new. I am, as my reputation, precedes me, like I'm a pretty innovative person. I'm always
Yeah.
coming up with new ideas,
Hmm.
on a regular basis. I'm testing them and seeing what works and then pushing it out there. Um, if you copy one of my things, that's fine. I'm gonna come up
Hmm.
with a new idea tomorrow. It's fine.
Yeah.
But you can't forget about the legacy programs. Like you don't always need to have the newest greatest thing. You really need to make sure that you master the things that work and that are going to be more timeless. Once you master those, then you can add on the new stuff. But I see people trying to take shortcuts and they skip right past the interpersonal things. They think it's
Hmm.
inefficient to book a lunch with a dentist or, um, you know, really build their relationships with the community.
Yeah.
You can't take shortcuts like that.
Yeah.
So
Do you
slow
find
down, master the legacy programs.
do you find that maybe some of the newer orthodontists coming into the field are resistant to the legacy stuff or is it across the board? Some people want to do one, not the other.
I don't, I haven't really seen them be resistant to
Hmm.
it, but I do think that a lot of the newer doctors that are just coming out, they're getting a lot of pressure and advice from people with an opinion,
Hmm.
but maybe they don't necessarily have all the experience.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would just caution them to seek out people that have the success that you want and don't take advice from people that just have an opinion or an
Hmm.
idea. Um, and don't take shortcuts. Make sure that the relationships are really, really strong. That
Hmm.
is, yeah, you can't skip that step.
Right. So, I'm curious if there are any tools or technologies that you think practices should be using to help their businesses succeed as we talk about like kind of the new stuff.
Yeah, there's quite a few things. So definitely Alibaba, like I already mentioned earlier, like get
Yeah,
used to
okay.
that. I know it's annoying. Keep in mind it's a 12-hour time difference. So if you say hi and they say hi and you say, how are you? And they say good, that's 4 days that you just wasted right there. So
Okay.
be really
Okay.
thorough. Yeah. So be really thorough in your communication. Understand that the samples are going to take at least a month to receive, and then the
Okay.
full order is going to take another month or if not longer. So you're talking
Yeah.
about 3 or 4 months out. So you got to be
Okay.
proactive.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing is Apple Business Connect just
Okay.
launched this last year. And so everyone's used to getting Google review, like managing their Google business listing
Hmm.
for Google Maps. But you got to remember, like over 90% of the population has an iPhone,
Yeah.
and Apple Maps is built in. Google
Hmm.
Maps is not installed automatically. You have to manually install
Right.
that. So a lot of people are
Hmm.
using Apple Maps. So they might type in braces near me or Invisalign near me, and all that content that comes up, which isn't a lot to be honest, but the content that
Yeah.
does come up and the businesses that are listed, it's all pulling the information from Yelp, or originally it was.
Okay.
And so if you haven't updated your Yelp in a long time, And yes, I know
Ah.
Yelp sucks, but we're stuck
Yes.
with it, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, Apple wanted to be able to list your information, and they wanted to have a review system because they weren't allowed
Okay.
to use Google reviews. And so
Mm-hmm.
they decided to team up with Yelp.
Okay.
Anyways, this last year, Apple finally launched Apple Business Connect. And so now all the best stuff that's on your Google business listing, you want to copy that and paste that over to your Apple Business Connect,
Okay.
and manage your own photos and get reviews and list your services and your descriptions and all of that stuff. That's really important. That most
Yeah.
people don't know about that right now.
Yeah, definitely. That's the first time I've heard of it, and I didn't realize the connection between Yelp and Apple. So, okay. Let's see. I'm curious for if we can kind of go a little broader for a practice that's interested in working with a creative agency like Peniche and Associates. What is your advice to doctors vetting who to work with?
Vetting which consulting
Well,
firm to
to
work with, or
decide
what?
decide if it's a good match, or what should they be? What kind of questions do you wish doctors would ask you as you're getting ready to decide whether to work together?
Um, I think they need to have a really good understanding of what the protocol is going to be when we
Hmm.
come into the office. Um, Accountability, understanding that at least for us, for Peniche and Associates, like
Hmm.
we're all about results, right?
Hmm.
Like we want our stats are important to us, just like your stats are important to your practice.
Hmm.
And so we work really, really hard to do a lot of support calls and monitor all their data and make sure that we're actually getting the results that that they signed up for, that they paid for.
Yeah.
And so they really need to understand that it's important to have our back. And so if we're talking to one of their employees and the employee's pushing back or not wanting or just resisting, the doctor needs to default to us and say like, well, if Peniche and Associates said to do it, then we're going to go ahead and do it. And they
Mm.
need to have our back.
Okay.
And they need to understand that expectation. Sometimes doctors, they let their staff members kind of walk all over them and make the final
Hmm.
decision.
Hmm.
And it's not part of the original game plan. And you start
Mm.
taking out pieces, and now all of a sudden the system doesn't work because that employee,
Right.
for some reason had final say. And
Yeah.
so that's frustrating. And so I just want to make sure that the doctors ask those questions, understand that protocol, understand that they need to back us up.
Hmm.
Because we're going to be in the office for 2 days, and then for the next 6 months, we're going to be doing support calls on a regular basis and monitoring the numbers. And so we're not there, and so
Yeah.
they need to be that voice in the office.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, as we wrap up, as you've worked with clients in the last year, what are some of the key observations or takeaways that you've had about the practices you've interacted with?
Um, there's two that come to mind. One
Hmm.
is the front desk, and then one is in the TC room. So
Okay.
at the front desk, I think some offices think that like the youngest person with the least amount of experience should be managing the phones,
Hmm.
and then maybe they're going to learn passively, and then
Yeah.
maybe they'll learn to do something else. And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of a disservice to yourself. Um,
Hmm.
the Whoever's answering the phone is the first point of contact for the patient. They need to be stellar. And so when you're qualifying them and doing your personality test or interviewing them, you need to make sure that they can multitask really well. They can consume a lot of information really quickly
Yeah.
and be thorough and detailed. If they're taking notes from the phone call on a piece of paper and then trying to upload that to the patient management system, um, are they entering it all correctly, or are they just trying to go really fast because they're just overwhelmed? And if they're
Right.
overwhelmed all the time, then maybe they're not really qualified to actually be in that position.
Yeah.
Um, so it's incredibly important to hire top talent to answer the phones and to be your scheduling coordinator. Um, don't just go with the youngest, least experienced person and put them up there.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, literally, like every dollar that you make comes through that phone line, right? So
Yeah.
if you're like a $3 million, $1 million practice or a $3 million practice, like every single dollar came to that phone line through that person. That should be one of the most talented people in the office. At least that's been my observation.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other one is in the TC room. we've just heard from a few people that the doctors struggle to get out of the room, or they just really love their job and they love
Mm-hmm.
talking to the patients. And sometimes
Yeah.
they're in there for way too long,
Wow.
and the treatment coordinator is like doesn't know how to get them out, get
Mm-hmm.
them out of the room
Mm-hmm.
without coming across as pushy or rude in front of the
Right.
patient that's sitting right there.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to bring it back to an old school tactic that my stepdad used. My stepdad
Uh-huh.
was an orthodontist as well,
Okay.
and so he had this system where it was like a pager
Mm-hmm.
that he clipped onto his belt. And then when anybody in the clinic needed him, they would just push a button and it would vibrate and he
Mm-hmm.
would get the hint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we actually found a new version where it looks like this. I found this on Amazon, and it looks like a watch, right?
Uh-huh.
And then there's a couple of these, so you can have one in the clinic and then one in the TC room, maybe under the desk.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so if the doctor's getting all chatty, you just push this button and this will vibrate, and the doctor's like, "Oh, I need to get out of this room." And exit out, and it'll save you time. And it's not, the patient doesn't know what's going on, obviously.
Right. So it's basically like
So
a
yeah,
shock collar for to train the doctor.
yeah, and the doctors know it. The doctors know that they're too chatty
Yeah.
and they're taking
Yeah.
too long in there. They know it.
Yeah.
They just get caught up in the moment, and all of a
Right.
sudden they start pulling books off the shelf and opening encyclopedias and really trying to
Uh-huh.
educate this person when it's like
Yeah.
they don't need to go that far in depth.
Oh man. Well, I think that's an ingenious. So that's a great suggestion. Well, Tony, thank you so much for talking with me today. I think it's really been helpful. If someone is interested in connecting with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
They can reach out to us just going to penicheteam.com.
Okay.
They can definitely follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. We're constantly putting updates out there.
Okay.
And we're pretty much like an open book. If you just need advice or need a referral source to a supplier or a service, reach out to us. We're really transparent about things. Like we don't take commissions from web developers or any of our suppliers or anyone that we refer to really. And if we do, we're straight up and honest about it.
Yeah.
So anybody, if you want advice and you want a recommendation from us, like it's gonna be non-biased, and it's going to be honest and understand that we're not taking commission. We're not paid to refer to anybody.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of an important detail to put out there.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Orthodontic Products podcast to keep up with the latest episodes, and be sure to check out orthodonticproductsonline.com to keep up with the latest industry news. Until next time, take care.